Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone to this session of Sri Bhagavatamrita. Today we will be discussing chapters 12 and 13 of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Canto 11. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Ruttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Aradhya Bhagavan Brajesha Tanayas Taddama Vrindavanam Ramya Kachidupasana Vrajavadhu Vargena Vakalpita Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanamamalam Prema Pumartho Mahan Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhur Matamidam Tatra Dharana Para Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. We'd like to thank the participants of the quiz yesterday on Facebook, Meena Mataji, Ranjani Gopika Mataji, Ananga Mohini Gopika Mataji, and Rajeshwari Mataji. And on YouTube, Geeta Varadarajan Mataji, Hari Krishna Madali Prabhu, and Ananga Mohini Gopika Mataji. Thank you very much for participating in the quiz yesterday. So we discussed today about the Canto 12 and 13, chapter 12 of Canto 11, entitled Beyond Renunciation and Knowledge. Here, actually, this chapter glorifies the wonderful association of devotees and the super excellence of the pure love of the residents of Vrindavan. Here, Krishna is explaining, continuing in the Uddhava Gita, Krishna is explaining to Uddhava how the association of these saintly devotees, it destroys the soul's attachment to material life. And because of that, we are able to reach the Supreme Lord Krishna and able to bring him under control. He says that Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Narodhyati Mam Yogo Na Sankhyaṁ Dharma Evacha Na Swadhyayastapastyago Neshta Purtam Na Dakshina Vratani Yagyaschandamsi Tirthani Niyamayama Yathavarundhe Satsangah Sarvasangapaho Mihimam. Here he is describing the glories of Satsanga, holy association. Krishna himself. He says, my dear Uddhava, by associating with my pure devotees, one can destroy one's attachment for all objects of material sense gratification. Such purifying association brings me under the control of my devotee. Which means if someone associates with my devotee, then it brings me under the control of the devotee who is associating with my devotees. So this is such a profound thing. Krishna is the controller of everyone, but he wants to be controlled by his pure devotees, by those who associate with his devotees. One may perform the Ashtanga Yoga system, engage in philosophical analysis of the elements of material nature, which is Sankhya. Krishna is saying, first he's saying, by associating with my pure devotees. Then he's saying, not by doing these other things, but by associating. So he's again and again, if there's an iota of doubt in your mind that any other thing along with the association will work, he says none of that will work, only association. Or practicing non-violence, that will not help. Other ordinary principles of piety, chanting the Vedas, does not help to control, to bring me under control. Performance and digging of wells, planting trees, performing other public welfare activities, it's good, but it's not good enough. Giving in charity, carrying out severe vows, worshipping the demigods, confidential mantras if you chant, if you visit holy places, or accept major disciplinary injunctions, minor ones, but even by performing such activities, one does not bring me under his control. Only by satsanga am I brought into control. This is very important. And how to associate with devotees is also important. When we associate with devotees, that association should educate us about Krishna. How do we understand this is association of devotee? Or that I am taking, sometimes we are physically in the association of devotees, but we are not taking any advantage of it. Because in the association of devotees, are we reminding each other of Krishna? In the association of devotees, are we being inspired to follow the instructions? In the association of devotees, are we getting any education about Krishna? Is it transforming our heart and taking us away from sense gratification? This is what is really needed in the association of devotees. And one time, it is said that real wisdom also comes by association of devotees. One time, a group of sadhus were sitting together, sadhu sangha, satsanga, and they asked everyone else, what is the sharpest thing? And everyone said, well, a sword. A sword is the sharpest thing. And the devotees, the sadhus said, no, it's the tongue which is the sharpest. Because the tongue can cut the heart, the mind, in ways that a sword cannot. If it's cut, the sword, someone is cut by a sword, he can heal pretty quickly. But with tongue, with words, when one is cut, it becomes very difficult. Then they ask, what is the biggest thing, largest thing? So some said, well, mountains are largest. Or some said, no, earth is the largest. And then some said, maybe sun is the largest that we see. But the sages said, no, ego is the biggest. False ego is the biggest. It's bigger than mountains, bigger than earth and sun combined. Because of ego and lust, we become wretched. Mountain, earth and sun cannot destroy us in the way ego can. And ego is really huge. You can move mountains, but to move the ego is so difficult, to be humble. Then they asked, okay, tell us, what is the most distant thing? Some said, sun. Sun is very distant. Moon, stars. Said, no, the most distant thing is the past. Our past. We can probably reach the moon. We can reach sun. We can reach the stars. We can never reach our past. Once something has happened, has happened. If we try to reach our past, we end up in regret because we are not the controllers. So the past is the most distant thing. Even 1 second ago, the second that just passed, it's so distant from us. It looks like it's just a second ago, but it's so distant we can never reach it. Then they asked, what is the closest thing to us? Closest thing. And some said, our parents. Parents are very close to us. Some said, our family, my wife, my spouse. The sages said, the closest thing, listen carefully, is death. Death is the closest thing to us. Any one of us. It's lurking around and we don't even know it. What is the hardest thing and the weightiest things, they asked. So, well, the steel. Steel is something which is very heavy. Or maybe an elephant. Elephant is heavy. So no, the most hardest and weightiest thing is to keep one's promise. To promise someone, commitment is the hardest thing. And to keep the commitment is even harder. They asked, what is the lightest thing? Some said, oh, cotton. Cotton is very light. Wind can take even cotton away. Dust always goes around. Sages said, no, the lightest thing is humility. Once we become humble, we feel so light. And it's the easiest thing to forget. Then they said, what is the easiest thing then? What is the easiest thing? Something very easy in your life. They said, eating, sleeping. I can eat anytime. It's easy. He says, no. To break someone's heart, the sages said, is the easiest thing. But to mend it is the hardest. So with this kind of association of devotees, a sadhu sangha, we can get real wisdom, is what Krishna is saying. Where we can remind each other of spiritual values, of Krishna. Did we chant our rounds? Did we hear Krishna Katha today? These are the gems that we have, that we can depend on. Then Krishna says, in every yuga, he goes on to say, he says, this is not just theory about the association of devotees. That I come under their control. I'll give you examples. So text 3 to 6, he gives examples of so many devotees. In every yuga, many living entities entangled in the modes of passion and ignorance gained the association of my devotees. Thus such living entities as the Daityas, the Rakshasas, birds, beasts, Gandharvas, Apsaras, Nagas, Siddhas, Charanas, Guhyakas and Vidyadharas, as well as such lower class human beings as the Vaishyas, Shudras, women and others, were able to achieve my supreme abode. You want examples? Krishna gives these examples himself. He says Vritrasura. We can see these, when we hear these examples that Krishna himself has given, imagine Krishna has given these examples because he values their devotional service so much. He's personally saying, Vritrasura, Prahlad Maharaj, they achieved by, my abode by association with my devotees. Then personalities like Vrishaparva, Bali Maharaj, Banasura, he even says Banasura, Mayadanav, by my, not my association, but association of my devotees. Vibhishana, Sugriva, Hanuman, Jambavan, Gajendra, Jatayu, Tuladhara, Dharmavyadha, Kubja, Gopis in Vrindavan, wives of the Brahmanas who were performing sacrifice. So here, let's see who each of them are. How did they achieve liberation? Ultimately, the Lord has mentioned Gopis in Vrindavan and demons like Banasura, that to illustrate that he comes under the control of whoever surrenders to him. That many demons, they were purified by the association with devotees, and they came to accept that devotional service is the most important. But Prahlad Maharaj, Bali Maharaj, whose names are given by the Lord in this verse, they know nothing except devotional service. Still, the reformed demons are also mentioned. Some are pure devotees, but others who were reformed, they were also mentioned by Krishna in this verse, because he wants to emphasize the benefits. He could have just taken the highest devotees' names who are completely surrendered. No, but others who committed offense, but then were reformed, they were also mentioned. Vritrasura he mentioned. Vritrasura was Chitraketu, and in that life of Chitraketu, he associated with devotees. Which devotees? Angira Muni, Narada Muni, and Sankarshana. Later on, he was, because of the glories of Lord Sankarshana, he took up this devotional service. Prahlad Maharaj, he was considered a Daitya, the son of Hiranyakashipu. Yet, he was purified because of the association of Narad Muni when he was in the womb of his mother, Kayadu. By sound vibration, he just associated by sound vibration. He never saw Narad Muni in that sense before Lord Nrsingadev came. But still, just by sound vibration. Vrishaparva was a demon. First name that Krishna took was Vrishaparva. He was abandoned by his mother at birth, but he was raised by a Muni, and he became a devotee of Lord Vishnu. So this is also by association. Bali Maharaj, his name is taken, he associated with his grandfather Prahlad Maharaj and also with Vamandev, so therefore he got purified. Bali Maharaj's son is Banasura. Banasura also was saved by the association of Lord Shiva and his father Bali Maharaj. Because of that, he was delivered. Again, he also associated with Krishna himself, who cut off his arms and left 4 arms out of the 1,000 arms that he had that were awarded as a benediction by Lord Shiva. Then Banasura became a great devotee. Mayadanav, who became a devotee because he constructed an assembly house for the Pandavas, associated with the Pandavas, associated with Lord Krishna himself. So here he's saying they actually became great devotees of the Lord. They were reformed just by association. He's taking Mayadanav's name. Vibhishana, we know Vibhishana, brother of Ravana, Hanuman, Ramachandra, Sugriva, Hanuman, Jambavan, Gajendra, they are examples of so-called animals who have achieved the mercy of the Lord. Krishna is even taking their names because it's not just human beings, it's not just demons or daityas, even animals. Sugriva, Hanuman, Jambavan. Jambavan was, Sugriva, Hanuman were in the body of a monkey. Jambavan in the body of a bear. Gajendra, elephant. Imagine, Krishna is remembering all of these people. And then, of course, Jambavan, association of devotees, but he also associated with Krishna during the Shamantaka jewel pastime. Gajendra, he had association of devotees in his previous life. He was actually Indradumna Maharaj. And then he was personally saved by the Lord. Jatayu, he assisted Lord Ramachandra, and therefore he became a devotee because he associated with Garuda. Garuda and Maharaj Dashrath. He was a very good friend. His brother Sampati was a very good friend of Dashrath. And therefore Jatayu also associated with Maharaj Dashrath. He also personally met Lord Ram, Sita, Lakshman, like that. Now, here it is said, Krishna says that there are Gandharvas, Apsaras, Nagas, Siddhas, Charanas, Vidyadharas. He mentions them, but he does not give examples. Because Srila Jiva Goswami says they are not very prominent devotees, so they don't need to be mentioned. And then he gives example of Vanikpatha. Vanikpatha is a Vaishya whose story comes in Mahabharata in connection with the pride of Jalaji Muni, Jajali Muni. Then he said the importance of association in Varaha Puran. It says that of a hunter, a non-violent hunter called Dharma Vyadha. Vyadha means hunter, Dharma Vyadha, non-violent hunter. In a previous life, he actually had become a Brahma Rakshasa or a Brahmana ghost, which is very, very, when you perform very hellish activities, that's what you become. But then he was saved eventually because he had, in the previous Kali Yuga, he had the association of a Vaishnava king named Vasu. Then Kubja, he takes the name of Kubja, who associated directly with Krishna. And in her previous birth, actually, Kubja had associated with Narad Muni. And then he tells about the Gopis of Vrindavan. Now, we say Gopis of Vrindavan, association of devotees, they associated directly with Krishna. How can they be purified by association of devotees? Well, they were actually, in the previous birth, they had rendered service to saintly persons. And they were also the sages of Dandakaranya forest. Because of the association previous life, they became gopis in their next lives. Also, Jiva Goswami says, don't forget, they associated with Tulasi Devi. Gopis associated with Tulasi Devi, Vrinda Devi. The wives of the Brahmanas, what kind of association of devotees did they get? They got the association of women that were sent by Lord Krishna to sell flower garlands and betel nuts. And then they heard about the Lord from them. Krishna had earlier sent, because these Brajbasis who were going to sell flower garlands and betel nuts. So that's how they associated. So everyone has become devotees by associating with other devotees. If not anyone, Tulasi Devi. If not anyone, we can associate with Srila Prabhupada with his books in so many different ways. Then he glorifies the gopis. All those hundreds of thousands of gopis Text 13, understanding me to be their most charming lover and ardently desiring me, were unaware of my actual position. These gopis, because they associated with devotees in their previous life, and then they associated with Tulasi Devi in this life, they were attracted to me. But they didn't know I was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yet, by intimately associating with me, the gopis attained me, the Supreme Absolute Truth. Therefore, my dear Uddhava, just the final instruction he gives, abandon the Vedic mantras, abandon these supplementary Vedic literatures, their positive and negative injunctions. Just disregard what you have heard and what is to be heard. Simply take shelter of me alone, for I am the Supreme Personality of Godhead, situated within the heart of all conditioned souls. Bhagavad Gita also says the same thing, that Riddeshe Arjuna Tishtati, that I reside within the heart of every conditioned soul. Take shelter of me wholeheartedly, and by my grace be free from fear in all circumstances. Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja. Same thing he's saying. Take shelter of me wholeheartedly. Aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayeshyami mashacha. Don't fear. And by my grace, be free from fear in all circumstances. You see the similarity between Uddhava Gita and Bhagavad Gita. The young damsels of Vraja, they did not know the identity of Krishna Chandra. They considered him as a paramour. But by constant association, they attained. They were so completely absorbed, and then Krishna says, they were so completely absorbed in Krishna that an entire night it would pass like a fraction. This is the time is very relative as an experience. If you're having fun, it goes very soon. And if it's a boring thing that we are doing sometimes, then every minute passes, looks like every hour. And we keep looking at the watch. Because time is actually an experience, and it's relative. And to gopis, the whole night looked like a fraction of a second. But when the same Krishna was taken away and they were in separation, that same time was looking like ages. They could not imagine anything else. And Krishna is glorifying that kind of love in separation. The gopis were so absorbed. One time, this is the famous story where Krishna was having a headache. And then nothing in Dwarka, nothing was curing that headache. So many Vaidyas came, so many people came. And then Narad Muni came, and he was concerned, all the queens were concerned, and then one Vaidya came. And he said, Krishna's headache can be cured just if he can get the dust from the lotus feet of his devotee. And so everyone was shocked. It was a solution, but also a big problem. Because everyone was thinking, how can I give the dust from my feet on Krishna's head? This is the biggest offense. I'll have to suffer in the hell. So then Krishna said, go and ask the gopis. So Narad Muni went and he told the gopis that Krishna is having a headache. Oh, he's having a headache. How can we cure him? Who can cure him? He said, well, the cure is there, but it's a very, very difficult cure. It requires a lot of sacrifice. He says, yeah, what is it? Tell us. We will find something. He said, the cure is that a devotee has to give the dust from his feet of a devotee. So gopis said, okay, are we considered devotees? Okay, take our dust. Take right now. They started scraping dust off their feet. And Narad Muni was, aren't you worried that this is going to go on the head of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Are you not worried that you'll be condemned to hell? And the gopis said, if we are ready to go to hell, if that even relieves a moment of Krishna's headache, even for a moment he gets a relief, it's worth it. And then Narad Muni realized the sacrificial true love of the gopis. And Krishna is sold out to that. Then, text 16, Uddhava asked, O Lord of all mystic powers, O Lord of all masters of mystic power, I have heard your words, but the doubt in my heart does not go away. Thus my mind is bewildered. I have heard what you're saying. Association with devotees, service to devotees, my association, hearing, chanting, but the doubt does not go away. Krishna answers that. He said this doubt will go away if with steady intelligence you should develop unalloyed devotional service by careful worship of the spiritual master, and with the sharpened axe of transcendental knowledge you should cut off the subtle material covering of the soul. Upon realizing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you should then give up that axe of analytical knowledge. Such wonderful words. So keep your intelligence steady, which means you go through the ups and downs of life. Keep your intelligence steady. Develop unalloyed devotional service. How? By carefully worshipping the spiritual master. Very important. Krishna himself is recommending this. And then, with the sharpened axe of transcendental knowledge, cut off the subtle material covering of the soul. So how do we cut these material coverings? By transcendental knowledge. That comes from devotional service, not just bookish knowledge, but the realized knowledge that comes from devotional service. And then you will realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead and throw away that axe. Because the goal is not knowledge. Knowledge is just an axe that will help. The goal is unalloyed devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This ends chapter 12, and we come to chapter 13. The Haṁsa-avatāra answers the questions of the sons of Brahma. Very interesting. Here, Krishna is actually explaining about the three modes of nature. He continues from the previous chapter. He says there is goodness, passion, ignorance. And one should conquer all these lower modes. And how do we get these? How do we conquer the lower modes and get into higher modes? Krishna again says, by associating with things in the mode of goodness, one becomes more fully situated in that mode. The three modes increase their different influences through various types of scripture, water, place, time, beneficiaries, natures of activity, birth, meditation, mantras, purificatory rituals, and so on. So he says, associating with things in mode of goodness means what? Means what should we associate with? He says, associate with scripture, with pure water, place in the mode of goodness, the time of the mode of goodness, early morning. Associate with these things. Associate with the birth, meditation, mantras. And then he says, until one, text 6, until one revives one's direct knowledge of the spirit soul and drives away the illusory identification with the material body and mind caused by the three modes of nature, one must cultivate those things in the mode of goodness. So Krishna is saying, okay, until you are able to become fully realized, try to be in the mode of goodness as much as possible. Because that mode of goodness is the springboard by which you can then jump into transcendence. But don't artificially think I'm in transcendence. No, a devotee who wants to go in transcendence should hover in the mode of goodness. But don't be attached to the mode of goodness. Because when we perform activities in the mode of goodness, like getting up early, bathing, and leading a sinless life, and all of that, we get a certain kind of pleasure. And then the trap of mode of goodness is that pleasure, it's not transcendental pleasure, it's just material pleasure, that nothing is going wrong, everything's going well, and then we become attached, and then we don't want to change. So he said, don't get attached to that pleasure. Hover in the mode of goodness, because the goal is to go transcendental. But Krishna is recommending, till you go transcendental, don't fool yourself, be in the mode of goodness. By increasing the mode of goodness, one automatically can understand and practice religious principles, and by such practice, transcendental knowledge is awakened. So transcendental knowledge is not awakened by reading. It's awakened by practicing. Then it's awakened. It's not just heard, but it's awakened. Oh, because Krishna in the heart, he's pleased by her sincerity, and he awakens that. One time, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was a professor of the Banaras Hindu University, came to Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He said, I have some doubts that I want to resolve. Can you please give me some time? He came on the day of Janmashtami. And Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, yes, I can resolve them, but we are really busy right now. We are all preparing for Janmashtami. Can you help us in some of the services so then we can complete them, and then I can sit and we can discuss. So this professor said, sure, yeah, I'll do some seva. What do I need to do? So he asked some of the devotees to engage him in some service. They engaged him in washing pots and vessels and things like that. And he was doing it very sincerely. He had questions about Bhagavad Gita, about Bhagavatam. He was a religious professor in the Banaras Hindu University. But then, after everything was complete, the festival was complete, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, come, my dear professor, let's sit. Now I have time for you. What are your questions? I can resolve. And the professor was, my dear Swamiji, all my questions are magically, mystically answered. I don't have any answers now. I don't have any questions. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, yes, that is the real result of devotional service. It's not magical. When you perform devotional service, when you engaged in the practical devotional service, Krishna must have been pleased. And therefore, the transcendental knowledge was awakened, as it says in this verse. Swayam eva sphurati yada. It comes from within. Otherwise, we can keep asking questions after questions after questions, and we can hear answers, but we'll not be convinced until we are convinced by the Lord within the heart. Atha Shri Krishna Namadi na bhaved grayam indriya. Sevon mukhe hi jevadau swayam eva sphurati yada. That Atha Shri Krishna, that when we take the devotional service, starting Nam Adi, starting with Nama, Krishna's hearing and chanting of the names of the Lord, na bhaved grayam indriya, we cannot understand the Lord by this blunt material senses. Sevon mukhe hi jevado, when we start seva, starting with jiva, with tongue, which means honoring prasad by chanting, hearing and chanting the holy names of the Lord, chanting Srimad Bhagavatam, Swayam eva sphurati yada, then it awakens from within. Text 8, Sri Uddhava said, my dear Krishna, generally human beings know that material life brings great future unhappiness, and still they try to enjoy material life. My dear Lord, how can one in knowledge act just like a dog, an ass or a goat? Sometimes we see people have great knowledge, but they know, but they don't know. Pashyanapi na pashyati. They see, but they don't see. How? How can one in knowledge act just like a dog, ass, or goat? So Krishna is saying that this is a very, very important question, because my dear Uddhava, a person bereft of intelligence first falsely identifies himself with the material body and mind, And when such false knowledge arises within one's consciousness because of misidentification with the body, due to mode of passion, the cause of great suffering pervades the mind, which by nature is situated in mode of goodness. It's saying, by nature, the mind is situated in the mode of goodness. But when the intelligence is polluted, then the mind goes along with the intelligence. So, generally we think that mind is in the mode of passion. Actually, intelligence is in the mode of passion. Therefore, while chanting, if we just put our intelligence to sleep, mind will automatically come to the mode of goodness. If we just stop analyzing while we are chanting, if we just act as a witness, that is the basis of vipassana meditation. Is they just say, don't plan anything while you are chanting. Let the mind be. They just say, focus on the mind. Just focus on what thoughts are going on. Don't judge, don't analyze the thoughts, don't try to act or plan anything. Just be a witness to those thoughts in your mind. And when you do that, initially the mind will have so many thoughts here and there. If you just keep witnessing and not acting, not planning on it, not putting intelligence into the thoughts of the mind, not judging the thoughts, just witnessing them, then slowly the mind will come to its mode of goodness, natural state, which is mode of goodness. That is vipassana meditation. And while chanting, we can do the similar thing. While chanting, we put our intelligence to sleep. We say, oh, intelligence, don't plan anything. Don't do, this is night time for you. Go to sleep. I'm going into my bhajan kutir. And now I'm just exposing my mind to chanting. The world around me is still asleep. Don't bring me any issues of what's going to happen later, what happened in the past. Just let it be and just focus on hearing and chanting, and then chanting will be very effective. And Krishna is saying the same thing, that a person bereft of intelligence, first, bereft of intelligence means bad intelligence, when intelligence is polluted. First, falsely identifies himself with the body, and then pervades the mind, which is by nature in the mode of goodness. We have seen in the 3rd chapter, mind comes from the mode of goodness. Then the mind, contaminated by passion, becomes absorbed in making and changing many plans for material advancement. This is exactly what Krishna is saying when we are chanting how to control the mind. Don't let it be influenced by intelligence. Then the mind, contaminated by passion, becomes absorbed in making and changing many plans for material advancement. Thus, by constantly thinking of the modes of material nature, a foolish person is afflicted with unbearable material desires. So even if thoughts come, just don't be absorbed in making and changing any plans during chanting. That's important. Then text 11, one who does not control the material senses comes under the control of material desires and is bewildered by strong modes of passion. So such a person executes material activities, although clearly seeing that the result will be future unhappiness. So he's saying it's mode of passion, same as in Bhagavad Gita, that it is Kama esha, Krodha esha, Rajo Guna Samudbhava. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna also asked the same question, that how can a person in knowledge still be bewildered? He says, Kama esha, Krodha esha. It's lust and anger arising from the mode of passion. Here also Uddhava asked the same question. He's saying the same thing, because of mode of passion. And then, therefore, it's important that we actually, and if we remain in the mode of goodness, then we can hear subtle things, of wisdom. One time, a prince was sent to forests by the king to learn some martial arts. And then the prince came back and he was about to be coronated. The king wanted to test if the prince is ready. And king said, go back to the forest and come after a month and tell me what you heard. And the prince said, I just came back from the forest. He said, that's why I'm asking you to go back. You went to forest last time to learn some martial arts. Now I just want you to wander in the forest and then come back. So he came back, and king said, what did you hear? He said, I heard the birds chirping every day in the morning and afternoon, and it was really nice. King said, you've not heard anything. Go back. Again, spend a month and come back. Tell me what you heard. Prince came back after a month. He said, this time I heard the sound of the birds, but I also heard the sound of bumblebees. King said, okay, you're making progress. Go back again. So he went. This time Prince came back and he said, King asked, what did you hear? The prince said, I heard the unheard things. What did you hear? The prince said, I heard the sound of the lion when he came near his cubs. I heard the sound of happiness of a honey bee when it is sucking nectar. I heard the sound of joy of the flower that was blooming. And the king said, very well, now you are fit to be a leader, because to be a leader, you have to be a seeker. You have to listen, hear the unheard emotions that are there of everyone. And that happens when we are in the mode of goodness. Now you're fit to be a leader. So anyway, Krishna continues that if you want to know how to do all of this, mode of passion, get in the mode of goodness, this actual system as taught by my devotees, headed by Sanak Kumar, is simply this. Having withdrawn the mind from all other objects, one should directly and appropriately absorb it in me. This is the final verse of the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where he says, the yoginam api sarvesham mat gater antaratmana, which means of all the yogis, the best yogi is one who is simply absorbed in me. Here also, Krishna is now telling that Sanak Kumar also, Sanat Sanatana, and the Sanak Kumaras, 4 sages, they also concluded the same thing. So Uddhava said, wait, you said Sanak Kumaras? My dear Keshava, at what time and in what form did you instruct the science of yoga to Sanaka and his brothers? I now want to know that story. How did they come to that conclusion? Did you tell them? So Krishna said, next verse, once the mental sons of Brahmā, namely the sages headed by Sanaka, inquired from their father about the difficult subject matter of the supreme goal of yoga. And they said, people's minds are naturally attracted to material objects. How can a person who desires liberation, who desires to cross over the activities of sense gratification, destroy this mutual relationship between the sense objects and mind? How? They asked Brahma this question. My dear, because they were formed from the mind of Brahma. So they said, how can we detach our mind from the sense objects and sense gratification? Please tell us. So, because it's the mind, it's the perceptions that make us. One time, a young couple, they moved into a new neighborhood. And the next morning, they were eating breakfast. The young woman was watching her neighbor hang the clothes, the washed laundry outside. And she kind of judged. She said, the laundry is not very clean. She doesn't know how to wash correctly, I guess. Perhaps she needs a better soap. Her husband looked and he remained silent. Then every time the neighbor would hang the washed clothes to dry, the young woman would make the same comments. it's not good. The laundry is bad. I don't know. She doesn't know how to wash or what. And then 1 month later, suddenly the woman was surprised. Wow, now the clothes really look really clean. Somehow, who gave her all these tips? I guess maybe she was listening to me. Maybe she got a new laundry soap or something. I think she has learned to wash correctly. I wonder who taught her this. The husband said, you know what the difference is, my dear wife? This morning I got up early and I cleaned our windows. So it was not the laundry which was dirty, it was our windows that were dirty, through which we were seeing. And as soon as the windows are clean, you're seeing the laundry is clean. So mind is that mirror through which we perceive the world. If our mind is not clean, whatever else we see will not be clean. Therefore, they are asking this question, how can we cleanse our mind? Atmaiva manyate jagat. They are Sanak, Sanatana, Sanandana, Sanat Kumar. They are asking Brahma. Brahma said, Brahma himself, who is born directly from the Lord and who is the creator of all living entities within the material world, being best of the demigods, seriously contemplated this question. The intelligence of Brahma was affected by his own activities of creation, and he could not discover the essential answer to this question. Brahma thought, his body is made up of pure intelligence. He could not answer. So what he did, he didn't make up an answer. Lord Brahma desired to attain the answer to the question that was puzzling him, and thus he fixed his mind upon me, the Supreme Lord. At that time, in my form of Haṁsa, I became visible to Lord Brahma. So whenever we are bewildered, Brahma is giving this example. Whenever we are bewildered, we should make a prayer. And then Krishna will do whatever is best for us. And he became visible to Lord Brahma. So then the sages and Brahma, they came forward, they worshipped his lotus feet, and they started asking, who are you? And then the Haṁsa-avatāra, who is the Yuga avatar in Satya Yuga, he responded by saying, who are you? By who are you? What do you mean? And he answers in many different ways, who are you? Ultimately saying, you are different than me, I'm different than you. That's who I am. And then he says, you know what? Waking, sleeping, and deep sleep are the three functions of the intelligence and are caused by the modes of material nature. This is a very important verse where they are actually trying to explain. In text 27, Krishna is explaining to the four Kumaras. Jagrat swapna sushuptam cha gunato buddhivrittaya tasam vilakshano jiva sakshitvena vinishchita. Waking, sleeping, and deep sleep are the three functions of the intelligence and are caused by the modes of material nature. So we know that what is the functions of the mind? Thinking, feeling, and willing. What is the function of the intelligence? Waking, sleeping, and deep sleep. The living entity within the body is ascertained to possess characteristics different from these three states and thus remains a witness to them. And in the next verse he says, and I am the spirit soul, the consciousness. I am the fourth stage of consciousness, beyond wakefulness, dreaming, and deep sleep. Becoming situated in me, the soul should give up the bondage of material existence. This is what he's saying. Real freedom is to exist as a witness to the functions of the illusion. Even in 11th canto, we are talking about 13th chapter. In 25th chapter, same thing is repeated. Sattva jagranam vidyad, rajasa swapnam adishet, prasvapam tamasa jantos, turiyam trishu santatam. One should know that wakefulness is born of the mode of goodness, dreams from the mode of passion, and deep dreamless sleep from the mode of ignorance. The fourth element, pure consciousness, it is different from these three and pervades them. So he's telling, when we are waking, that is in the mode of goodness. When we are having dreams, sometimes we wake up and we remember the dream. That's in the mode of passion. And deep, dreamless sleep is mode of ignorance. If you don't remember the sleep, that means the dream, that means we were sleeping in the mode of ignorance. But if it gives rest to the body and we can engage it in devotional service, then it becomes transcendental. And then he says, the false ego of the living entity places him in bondage and awards him exactly the opposite of what he really desires. False ego. Therefore, an intelligent person should give up his constant anxiety to enjoy material life and remain situated in the Lord, who is beyond the functions of material consciousness. And then he says, fix your mind on me alone. If, however, one continues to see many different values and goals in life rather than seeing everything in me, then although apparently awake, one is actually dreaming due to incomplete knowledge, just as one may dream that one has awakened from a dream. This is so profound. It's like the Matrix movie. We're going in a dream, and a dream within a dream. But here Krishna is saying, if someone is doing anything other than absorbing himself in me, then although one may look awake, one is actually dreaming due to incomplete knowledge. He is dreaming, even though he is awakened from a dream. So we may have gotten up from a dream in the night, but we are actually in a wakeful dream. This is Krishna's words. Srila Prabhupada told these to the scientists. This is so... now we are realizing Krishna told these to Uddhava. There is a night dream and there is a daydream. We are thinking, but both of them are dream. So we are actually in the spiritual world, dreaming that we are in this material world. All of this is a dream of the soul. Yoga Nidra, in one sense, of the Lord. Lord Haṁsa proceeded to give different instructions, and then the sages, headed by Sanaka, became freed from all their doubts by hearing the words of the Lord and worshipped him with pure devotion in mature love of God. So this is the proof that we are actually still with Krishna. We are never away from Krishna, but we are dreaming that we are away from Krishna. This is the proof that Krishna is giving. Text 30 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11. With this, we will end today's discussion, and tomorrow we'll go with the next two chapters. Chapter 14, Lord Krishna explains the yoga system to Sri Uddhava. This will be Monday that we will be discussing. Okay, so we will go with the questions. We have 9 questions. First, how can we bring Krishna under our loving control? Second, what is the way to properly associate with devotees? Third, what is the sharpest and biggest object in this world according to the story of the sadhus? Fourth, what is the most farthest and the closest thing to us? Fifth, what is the lightest and the heaviest thing? Sixth, name some animals whom Krishna takes names of, who were transformed by the association of devotees. Seventh, which devotees did the gopis of Vrindavan associate with in this life and previous life? Eighth, what is the result of engaging in direct devotional service to Krishna? Ninth, what are the functions of the mind and 3 functions of the intelligence? All right, if there are any questions or comments, we can take now. Thank you, Narsimha Gaura Hari Prabhu, Anju Agarwal Mataji, Shamala Gopika Mataji, Radha Padavi Mataji, Anusha Bhishetty Mataji, welcome. Gandharvika Gopi Mataji, Shanti Ramanuja Mataji, Maha Gopi Radhika Mataji, Divyangi Mataji and Prem Vikas Prabhu, Pushpa Preeti Mataji, Saumya Mataji, again Shamala Gopika Mataji, Ananta Daya Prabhu, and Swati Jhunjhunwala Mataji, Meena Mataji, Shweta Suryanarayan Mataji. Thank you very much. Okay, we have a question by Shamala Gopika Mataji. Do we have 3 modes in preaching also, like mode of passion and goodness? Well, there is, just like Kapila Muni, he describes devotional service in 3 modes. So depending on the devotional service, bhakti itself is not affected by any modes. But our consciousness in which we are performing the bhakti is affected by 3 modes, or is motivated by the 3 modes of nature. And in the same way, preaching in itself is not affected by the 3 modes, because preaching is hearing and chanting, is bhakti of the Lord, is very dear to the Lord. But it is actually the consciousness in which we preach is in the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. If we are preaching for some material gain, because when we preach, there are so many material gains that comes, and if we take advantage of that, that is a distraction. Then we are preaching in the mode of passion. If we are preaching out of duty, I don't really have the heart, but it's my duty, I'll do it for my purification. That's in the mode of goodness. And preaching in the transcendental mode is when we are preaching either out of pure compassion, like Srila Prabhupada did. He was really feeling compassionate because he is experiencing the mellows of devotional service within his heart, and he's seeing anyone who is not experiencing that is so miserable, even though they think they are happy. And he can feel that. So that is preaching in transcendental mode. Or if we are preaching on behalf of Srila Prabhupada, in the mood of Srila Prabhupada, trying as much as possible, sincerely, then that is also transcendental preaching. But we should be enthusiastic to preach, and that will make Krishna very happy. I hope that answers your question. Okay, if there are no more questions, we can end here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.